The U.S. Navy just made a stunning admission. Naval officials yesterday confirmed that 3 separate UFO videos released by the New York Times in 2017 and previewed on the show are actually genuine. They do, in fact, show aerial phenomenon the Navy cannot explain, and that, in fact, our understanding of physics cannot explain. The Navy also recently sent a letter to Congressman Mark Walker saying that it takes UFO sightings very seriously and is working to investigate them. Nick Pope is a British journalist. He once investigated UFOs for the UK Ministry of Defense. He joins us tonight to explain the significance of this. So, Nick, this does seem like a change in the way the Pentagon describes this phenomenon, is it?
Yes, it is. Up until this point, the Navy has said very little. And in fact, they've left the door open sometimes and almost implied, look, we might be dealing with commercial drones or even balloons. But now what they've done is turned around and said, number one, this is real. And number two, this is unidentified aerial phenomena. That's the phrase that they've used. Previously, they've said advanced unknown aircraft. Now they're saying unidentified aerial phenomena. And that is, it's a term borrowed from the British government. We used it in the Ministry of Defense, and we meant UFOs.
So the U.S. government is admitting that they have no idea what these things are, that they're probably not some Russian superplane, and nobody's paying attention to this. I mean, this seems like a watershed moment. I mean, we have all this tape of objects defying the known laws of physics right next to U.S. military installations. The military admits it. Why is this not page one news everywhere?
Well, it should be, absolutely. These aircraft carriers that many of these UFOs have been interacting with, obviously these are billion-dollar assets. And if the official position of the most powerful Navy in the world is, frankly, little more than, we don't know what this is, I don't think that's good enough. And I think clearly people like Mark Walker don't think so either. And I would urge him to get the classified briefing that other senators have said they've received, and maybe within the bounds of not wanting to divulge classified information, but maybe some of these senators could then step forward and at least give us a clue of what we're dealing with here.
So it turns out it wasn't a weather balloon. I mean, they've been telling us that for 50 years. Oh, it's a weather balloon. It's not a weather balloon, is it?
No, absolutely not. Somebody in the Pentagon must have. They say we don't want to hypothesize about this. That's fine. But there must be, in the Pentagon, a best assessment. And there must be a view of what they're ruling out. We should be told.
There's obviously some reason they're not telling us. In 15 seconds, hypothesize as to what that reason might be.
Well, some secret too terrible to be told. But I think we should be told, or at least we should be hinted at.
Yeah, or maybe not. I don't know. They've been lying about it for 50 years. Maybe there's a reason they have been. I don't know, Nick. This is starting to worry me. I'm grateful, though, that you have come on so frequently to put it in context for us. Good to see you tonight. Thank you.
Yes, sir, we have it. Great picture.
It came and went pretty quick, but that was about as much as we have of it.
Columbia and the satellite now 77 nautical miles apart. Again, that call reporting that the crew can see the tether and see the satellite, that it's beautiful. this view showing the satellite. Again, just moving into sunrise. 81 nautical miles now from Columbia.
Guys getting the image?
Franklin, we see a long line, a couple of star-like things, and a lot of things swimming in the foreground. Can you describe what you're seeing?
Well, the long line is a tether, and there's a little bit of debris that kind of flies with us, and it's illuminated by the sun at such low angle. So there's a lot of stray light, and it's getting washed out quickly, but Claude is trying to do a quick, good job here adjusting the cameras.
Copy that.
Again, that description by the crew, this is the tether in the satellite with approximately 12 miles of tether still attached to it. Columbia and the satellite now just passing over the west coast of northern Africa. The two spacecraft now 90 nautical miles apart. Controllers for the satellite did have communications with it during the close pass between Columbia and the satellite.
In 1969, Georgia Governor and future U.S. President Jimmy Carter claims he witnessed a UFO. There have been numerous attempts to explain the sighting.
Some have speculated that perhaps what Jimmy Carter saw was some type of weather balloon filled with helium.
But aspects of the sighting don't fit the weather balloon theory. Carter's sightings, filed at NICAP and the UFO Bureau, describe the object changing color. It was the size of the moon, moving bizarrely through the sky before it disappeared.
Oh, Jimmy Carter, the governor of Georgia, graduate from Annapolis, is really only seeing a weather balloon. A weather balloon? Are we back to Roswell in 1947? Weather balloons don't change color. Weather balloons don't hover. Weather balloons aren't that big. This was big. They rise, and they don't stay in the sky. Jimmy Carter didn't see a weather balloon.
At the time, there is no official explanation given for what Jimmy Carter saw. Even though he can't prove it, the experience of the sighting stays with him.
Jimmy Carter is running for president, and he's asked on the campaign trail, Governor Carter, will you tell the truth to the American people about UFOs? And Jimmy Carter says, yes, I will. He's going to reveal the truth.
In 1977, when Carter wins the presidency, he directs the CIA to release top-secret reports on UFOs and extraterrestrial life. The CIA refuses.
Just flat out say no to the president, that's really something.
Carter tries another way.
Jimmy Carter asks the director of Central Intelligence, George H.W. Bush, Mr. Director, can you tell me what the CIA knows about UFOs? And George, consummate professional, says, Mr. President-elect, you have no need to know.
The CIA has denied the new president permission to release top-secret information to the public.
It surprises people to find out that the President of the United States doesn't have access to everything.
The UFO secret is a higher level of top secret than you, even though you're the commander-in-chief.
But something mysterious happens. Just as it seems a standoff is on the cards, Carter makes a U-turn, retracting his promise to declassify UFO documents and make key reports public. He cites a serious threat to national security as the reason for backing down.
President Carter never mentions the word UFO again.
It sounds suspicious, but there are some very sensible reasons why you don't release sensitive national security information.
NASA astronaut and test pilot Hoot Gibson has been involved in projects like these.
I do know as a test pilot that we have very highly classified projects that are flying, and I'll say where they're flying from. They're flying from Area 51. We know that this has been going on for years and years because such airplanes as the SR-71 Blackbird, the U-2, the stealth fighter, the F-117, those all started life up in that area and flew from that spot. I would be very surprised if we don't still have secret, top secret, military prototype aircraft flying from there.
Could such top secret projects really justify shutting the president down?
What we know is just a tiny fraction of what's really out there. So without a NASA investigation into that sighting, we're never gonna know what Jimmy Carter really saw.
For now, this secret remains unexplained.
I couldn't help at one point in my discussions privately with General Secretary Gorbachev, when you stop to think that we're all God's children wherever we may live in the world, I couldn't help but say to him, just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet, outside in the universe. We'd forget all the little local differences that we have between our countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings here on this earth together.
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our people than war?
UFOs and the White House. President Richard Milhous Nixon's interest in UFOs is harder to calculate.
I've talked to people who claim they talked to Nixon about UFOs. He was very interested. There was a rumored story that he had a huge UFO book collection, which I was never able to substantiate.
Many UFO researchers believe Nixon received specific briefings, information he may have wanted to take public.
There's some very good indications that he planned to reveal data, that UFOs past, present, and future, a book by Robert Emenegger, a television program that was done with that title. I talked to Emenegger, and he got asked by the Republican Party to produce that show using only government people, because the idea was they were going to release data.
Bob Emenegger was an advertising executive and television producer who happened to know an important man inside the Nixon White House.
Bob Haldeman was someone I knew from UCLA Beta House, which is a fraternity. Then, as you know, he went on to be chief of staff under Nixon.
In the mid-1970s, Emenegger and his partner researched military stories for their TV production at Norton Air Force Base's film archives.
Paul Shartle is the one who took us in there and said, what would you think if we told you we had a landing at Holloman Air Force Base of an alien craft, and it was filmed by our TDY, our temporary duty guys, and the film was sent here to Norton, where all films usually are sent. And I thought, this sounds outrageous, that, UFOs and all. He said, well, look, if you're interested, check with the Pentagon, but bury those under those other projects, because it's a red flag to get into the subject of UFOs. George Weinbrenner was the commander of foreign technology. He has a private bunker down at Wright-Patterson. I went down the long hall, I could see all the little cameras, surveillance cameras, walked right up to his desk and said, I want to ask you, what about the landing of an alien craft at Holloman Air Force Base? And I sort of expected him to say, what? The what? He didn't. So he reached up, pulled out a book, handed it to me. So I opened the book up and I said, to my friend, Colonel George Weinbrenner, signed Dr. Alan Hynek, and the book was all on UFOs. Well, Hynek was the scientific advisor to the Air Force at that time on UFOs.
Perplexed, Emenegger contacted his friend and Nixon's chief of staff, Bob Haldeman.
He was at the White House, and I asked if he had heard anything about the landing at Holloman Air Force Base, and he said, well, I heard something, but I don't know. Whether the president knew, I have no idea.
While Emenegger never obtained the Holloman film for the 1974 nationally broadcast program, his first-hand experience provides researchers insight on what American presidents may have known about UFOs.
A friend of mine helping me out talked to two ex-presidents. They both confirmed that they had been shown the Holloman Air Force Base film.
Gathered in a schoolyard with about 20 other men, and we saw a bright light appear in the distant western skies, and it got closer and closer, and when it was just above the treetops, it changed color, and then it stayed there for a while, and then it disappeared into the distance. And none of us could ever imagine what it was, and I still don't know what it was.
In 76, you said you'd try and release all information to the public and to scientists about other UFO sightings.
Yes.
Do you think you achieved that?
I'm not sure, but we did release a lot of the information, but I don't know
An
how much
exclusive
was
interview
not
in
true.
Hollywood, its director, Stevensburg, told us that while he was up to his neck in water filming Jaws, he was really thinking of his next film, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, a film concerned with UFOs.
Just after Jaws finished, I came back and I wanted to relate to dry land, and I also wanted to think about Close Encounters, so I went out to Pear Blossom, which is the desert near Mojave. There's nothing around for miles, and if you want to watch the cosmos, that's the place to stand and do it. I mean, you feel like a grain of salt, and the stars are so vast. I mean, it's almost like looking down at the sky because the sky surrounds you. It's an amazing planetarium show. And I went out there, and I parked my car, turned the lights out, and sat on the roof, and looked up at the sky, and said to myself, if something comes down here right now and lands on the road, and an opening appears, would I get on and take a ride? And I thought about it, and I looked up at the sky, and I got very, very nervous because I realized that I wouldn't get on and take a ride. As a matter of fact, I was getting so nervous by embracing and romancing that thought that I got back in my car and I drove back to Los Angeles. I was terrified. on Eastern Airlines from L.A. to New Orleans, and my production designer, who was on the airplane with me, was talking to the stewardesses about the movie we were making, and he mentioned to one of the stewardesses that it was a film about dealing, with UFOs. And the stewardess apparently went into the cabin and mentioned this to the pilot, and all of a sudden this big, steely, gray-haired guy with wings on his chest comes out, the pilot of the airplane. They point me out. He sits down next to me, and he said, will this be a serious movie, or is this just going to be a comedy or a sci-fi? And I said, no, we were taking the subject very serious. And then, knowing that I wasn't about to laugh in his face and ridicule what he was about to tell me, he sat down. He told me 2 experiences he had while flying with Eastern. One was a nocturnal light that traveled very, very quickly across his glide path. It startled everybody because of its speed. It wasn't a shooting star. It wasn't up there. It was eye level and moving very, very, very quickly. Something that was passing very close across his bow. I wouldn't put it past this government that a cosmic Watergate has been underway for the last, 25 years. And at the same time, I don't think it's, I think as we're growing up, or from the government's point of view, I think we've been adults for hundreds of years, but from the government's point of view, we're still growing up, and eventually they might want to tell us something about what they've discovered over the decades. There is a rumor that was in U.S. News and World Report a number of months ago that Jimmy Carter might make some unsettling disclosures about the UFO phenomena sometime in December. It's perfect timing. I opened my movie in December, so it's perfect timing.
3 astronauts of Apollo 11 who went to the moon back in 1969 all said that they believe there is life beyond Earth. Do you agree?
I don't know, and I don't presume to know. What I know is there is life here on Earth, and that we're not attending to life here on Earth. We're not taking care of kids who are alive and unfortunately are not getting health care. We're not taking care of senior citizens who are alive and are seeing their heating prices go up. So as president, those are the people I will be attending to first.
In space, the United States is going to do Colonel Glenn proud. We are finally going to lead again. You see what's happening. You see the rockets going up left and right. You haven't seen that for a long time. Very soon we're going to Mars. You wouldn't have been going to Mars if my opponent won. That I can tell you. You wouldn't even be thinking about it. Space is a war-fighting domain, just like the land, air, and sea. We may even have a space force. Develop another one. Space Force. We have the Air Force, we'll have the Space Force. We have the Army, the Navy. I was saying it the other day because we're doing a tremendous amount of work in space. I said, maybe we need a new force. We'll call it the Space Force. And I was not really serious. And then I said, what a great idea. Maybe we'll have to do that.